Good morning, class. 9A. This is Miss Seshu. Video 2 for the topic Transport in Animals. The references are the course book, page 108, 109, and 110. In this topic, we are looking the subtopic is 9.2, the heart. So every individual need a heart for its life to be alive. So how the heart functions. So today we are going to see how the heart functions. First you look for the diagram of the heart. It is a section of the heart and you can see the names, the parts of the heart inside. Just pause the video and take the picture in your notebook and label it. So after finishing drawing the picture and labeling the parts, just read one time. Aorta, this is pulmonary artery, pulmonary vein, left atrium, left ventricle, this is septum, right ventricle, inferior vena cava, right atrium, superior vena cava. Okay, these all the parts in the heart. So let us see how it functions. So the function of the heart is to pump blood around the body. It is made up of a special type of muscle called cardiac muscle. This is the muscle called cardiac muscle. This muscle contracts and relaxes regularly throughout the life. All we are thinking that heartbeat means it's beating something, but it is a movement called relaxation and contracts by the muscle of the heart. The muscle which is present in the heart, it is getting contracts and relaxes. By that we feel the heart is beating. So the heart itself, we can see the section of the heart here, that is divided into 4 chambers. Here 1, 2, 3 and 4. The 2 upper chambers are called atria. Here you can see left atrium and right atrium. Same like that, the lower 2 chambers are called ventricles, left ventricle and right ventricle. The chambers on the left hand side are completely separated from one on the right hand side by a septum. This is the part called septum. This septum is separating both the chambers in the lower side. So if you see the structure of the heart here, the blood is flowing from the top of it. That means you can see that blood flows into the heart at the top, into the atria here. Okay, both of atria receive blood. The left atrium receives blood from the pulmonary vein, which comes from the lungs. Okay, this is the pulmonary vein coming from the lungs. This is getting the blood into it. The right atrium receives blood from the rest of the body, arriving through the vena cava. For example, it is a singular form is vena cava. Here you can see vena cava vein here, and here you can see in the next before picture I showed you here, inferior vena cava and the superior vena cava. If it is one vena cava, we will say. If it is more, we say vena cavae. So from the atria, the blood flows into the ventricles from here. From the atria, the blood is coming into the ventricle and again going back to the pulmonary arteries. So the ventricle then pump it out of the heart. When it is coming from the atrium into the ventricle, this will pump back to the heart. They do this by contracting the muscle in their walls. The strong cardiac muscle the strong cardiac muscle contracts with considerable force, squeezing inwards on the blood inside the heart and pushing it out. When it is contracting, it will be squeezing the heart and pushing it out. The blood in the left ventricle is pumped into the aorta. The blood that is present in the left ventricle, this will be pushing it into the aorta. So the right ventricle pumps blood into the pulmonary artery. Here, the right ventricle will be pumping the blood into the pulmonary artery, which takes it to the lungs. When we compare the ventricles and the atria, the function of those both are quite different. The function of the ventricles is quite different from the function of atria. So let us see. The atria simply receives blood from either the lungs or the body and supply it to the ventricles. It will be taking from the other parts of the body and it will be sending it to the ventricle. The ventricles pump blood out of the heart and all around the body. To help them to do this, the ventricles have much thicker, more muscular walls than the atria. As we have understood that the functions between the atria and the ventricle are different, similarly the thickness of the walls from atria and the ventricles also different. That means the thickness of the walls of the right and left ventricles are different. The right ventricle pumps the blood to the lungs, which are very close to the heart, and the left ventricle will be pumping the blood to all parts of the body. And here you can see the walls of the ventricles are different. By looking at the right ventricle is having a thin here and the left ventricle is having very thicker wall. This thick wall of muscle to enable to pump the blood into the aorta. The blood flowing to the lungs in the pulmonary artery has a much lower pressure than the blood in the aorta. So in this way, the function of the heart is going on. That means I revise it finally. The aorta is taking the blood and giving it to the atrium, and this atrium is pushing down to the ventricle. The atria are receiving the blood from the lungs and the other parts of the body. They are pushing it into the ventricles, and here the ventricles are sending the blood into the pushing back to the pulmonary artery and pulmonary veins, which are near to the heart. So like this we have, I hope you have understood the function of the heart.